Breaking. Prince William just crossed a line no royal has dared cross in 100 years. He didn't just speak out against the government, he actively killed a bill that would have demolished Britain's countryside. And now the Prime Minister is facing the biggest crisis of his career. This isn't protocol, this isn't tradition, this is a constitutional earthquake. And what happens in the next 72 hours will determine if Britain's monarchy survives the 21st century. If you want to see how this ends, hit subscribe now, because this story is exploding faster than we can cover it. Here's what went down. Yesterday at 9:42 a.m, Prime Minister Keir Starmer unveiled the Housing and Immigration Integration Act. The pitch? Britain needs 500,000 new homes, and rural communities will deliver them whether they like it or not. The bill wasn't just ambitious, it was brutal. Mandatory housing quotas for migrants in villages. Compulsory purchase orders to seize farmland at below-market prices. Financial penalties for any council that refused. No appeals, no exceptions. But Prince William had seen enough. For the first time in modern history, the Prince of Wales contacted Conservative MPs directly. Not through official channels, not through palace intermediaries. Direct calls, personal meetings, urgent messages. Within 3 hours, Starmer's bill began collapsing. By 2:30 p.m, 47 Conservative MPs pledged to vote against it. By 4 p.m, even 12 Labour MPs from rural constituencies were backing away. According to 3 separate sources inside Kensington Palace, William's message was devastating. This isn't policy. This is cultural erasure. I cannot stand by while Westminster bulldozes the communities my grandmother loved and my father has spent his life protecting. Inside number 10, panic set in. Starmer reportedly threw a folder across the room and shouted something he'd never say publicly. William thinks he can dictate policy. He's a prince, not parliament. This is why people want to abolish the whole system. But here's what Starmer didn't know. William had been preparing for this moment for months. Since September, he personally visited 14 rural communities facing development threats. No photographers, no press, no announcements. He met farmers. He toured estates marked for demolition. He sat in centuries-old pubs with families about to lose everything. One palace aide called it the prince building his own case. When Starmer revealed the full Housing Act, William already knew every detail. He'd seen preliminary drafts through Conservative contacts. He understood the compulsory purchase provisions better than most Labour MPs. This wasn't impulsive royal interference. This was calculated, strategic, devastating. And the people he's protecting? They're suffering in ways the media won't show you. Meet Graham Harrison. He's 71. For 45 years, his family worked the same Cotswolds land his grandfather farmed. Last month, he received a letter. His 80-acre farm was designated for compulsory purchase. Market value, £2.1 million. Government offer, £890,000. Graham isn't just losing his farm. He's losing his family's history. His grandfather fought at Normandy. His father rebuilt Britain after the war. Now bureaucrats want to seize everything for housing developments locals never asked for. When Graham tried to challenge the order, he discovered the system was rigged. Legal fees, minimum £200,000. Appeal time, 18 to 24 months. His bank saw the compulsory purchase notice and immediately cut his credit line by 60%, calling the farm non-viable collateral. His son, who was supposed to inherit the land, moved to Australia. There's no future left in British farming, Graham told reporters, voice breaking. I survived foot and mouth. I survived 2008, but I can't survive my own government treating me like an obstacle. While families like the Harrisons face destruction, Starmer's cabinet claimed £847,000 in expenses last quarter, including £34,000 for Starmer's personal photographer. The contrast is so stark that even Labour strongholds are revolting. In Yorkshire, Cumbria and Devon, lifelong Labour voters are tearing up membership cards. Dorothy Ainsworth, an 82-year-old retired nurse who voted Labour for 60 consecutive years, recorded a message that went viral. I believed Labour cared about working people, but Keir Starmer cares more about targets than communities. Prince William showed more compassion in one speech than Labour has in a year. Then William did something that shocked everyone. At the Royal Agricultural Show in Cirencester yesterday, he delivered what palace insiders are calling the most politically charged speech by a senior royal since Princess Diana. We must ask ourselves, William declared, what kind of Britain are we building? Are we preserving the communities that make this nation special, or destroying them in the name of progress nobody voted for? The crowd of 3,000 farmers erupted in applause that lasted 4 full minutes. Video shows William pausing, visibly moved, before continuing. Our rural heritage isn't an obstacle to overcome. It's the foundation of who we are. Palace insiders say William wrote the speech himself, without consulting King Charles or the communications team. Buckingham Palace staff were blindsided. One aide called it crossing the Rubicon. The optics are catastrophic for Starmer. The future king stands with ordinary Britons against a Labour government that claims to represent working people. William looks strong, principled, connected. Starmer looks exactly like what critics say he is, an out-of-touch London lawyer who doesn't understand traditional Britain. But here's the part that makes this extraordinary. King Charles himself tried to stop William from making that speech. At Clarence House 2 nights ago, Charles warned his son that direct political engagement could damage the monarchy's neutrality. The conversation lasted nearly 3 hours and became heated. William's response, according to Palace insiders, was remarkable. You've spent your entire life campaigning for the environment, for traditional farming, for rural communities. You built a movement around these values. Now, when they're under the worst attack in generations, you want me to stay silent. I won't do it. If the monarchy won't defend what matters, what's the point? Charles had no answer. He warned there would be consequences. William replied, "Then let there be consequences. Some things are worth fighting for." That exchange reveals something profound. William isn't just intervening in one policy debate. He's redefining what the modern monarchy stands for. The response was immediate and catastrophic. Within 2 hours of William's speech, the pound dropped 1.4% against the dollar. International investors dumped £3.2 billion worth of British government bonds. Major construction companies saw shares crash. Persimmon fell 8%, Barratt Developments dropped 11%, Taylor Wimpey collapsed 9%. #Defend Rural Britain started trending globally within 90 minutes, #1 in the UK, Canada and Australia. The hashtag generated 2.7 million tweets in 6 hours. Protests erupted everywhere. In the Cotswolds, 4,000 people blocked the A40. In Devon, farmers drove tractors to Exeter city centre and refused to move. In North Yorkshire, an entire village of 600 marched to their MP's office, demanding he vote against the bill or resign. The polls showed brutal truth. A Snap YouGov survey: 68% of Britons support Prince William's intervention. Only 19% sided with Starmer. Even worse for Labour, 41% of their own 2024 voters said the Prince was right to speak out. For the first time since the election, Conservatives pulled ahead, 34% to Labour's 31%. Reform UK surged to 18%. Starmer wasn't just losing the political battle, he was losing the country. Then the international humiliation began. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney praised William's courageous defence of rural heritage. New Zealand's Prime Minister called the Housing Act concerning and suggested Britain should listen to its traditions. Even President Macron of France made a pointed comment. Cultural identity should never be sacrificed for political expediency. The message was clear. Starmer had become internationally toxic. Inside number 10, the atmosphere turned chaotic. Ministers are fighting over who leaked the bill to the palace. Deputy PM Angela Rayner allegedly confronted Chancellor Rachel Reeves in a corridor, accusing her camp of sabotage. Housing Secretary Matthew Pennycook was overheard saying, "This is a complete disaster. We're finished." WhatsApp groups with names like Rural Caucus and Save Labour are exploding with messages from backbench MPs demanding the bills be withdrawn immediately. Veteran Labour MP Harriet Harman, who served since 1982, sent a private message to 30 colleagues that immediately leaked to The Telegraph. "We cannot win a fight against the monarchy and rural Britain simultaneously. This bill must die, or we die with it." Even Starmer's closest allies are deserting him. Environment Secretary Steve Reed refused to defend the bill on Question Time last night. When pressed, he simply said, "The party is listening to concerns." Translation: Starmer is on his own. During today's Prime Minister's questions, Starmer looked shell-shocked. Sources say he barely made eye contact with his own MPs, stumbled over prepared answers, and left the chamber 20 minutes early. No sitting Prime Minister has done that in modern memory. But here's the part that could end his premiership forever. Leaked documents obtained by GB News show the Housing Act contains provisions never disclosed to Parliament. If real, these documents prove Starmer deliberately hid the most controversial elements from his own party. Page 47 includes something called cultural integration zones. The government would have legal authority to designate entire villages as mandatory settlement areas for recently arrived migrants. Quotas enforced by financial penalties. Communities would have no say, no vote, no voice. Section 12 gives ministers power to override local planning decisions with zero accountability and zero appeal process. Page 63 contains the most explosive revelation. It establishes a rural modernisation fund of £8 billion, specifically for demolishing historically insensitive structures in villages to make way for culturally appropriate housing. Read that again. The government planned to tear down stone cottages, centuries-old pubs, village churches, anything deemed outdated, and replace them with standardised housing blocks. If true, Starmer wasn't just building homes. He was erasing British heritage village by village, and Prince William somehow knew about it before Parliament did. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are seizing their moment. Opposition leader Rishi Sunak delivered a speech in Parliament this morning that reminded everyone why he once ran the country. While the Prime Minister plots to demolish Britain's villages, Sunak declared, voice rising with controlled fury, we stand with the communities that made this nation great. We stand with farmers, we stand with families, and we stand with Prince William. The chamber erupted in Conservative cheers so loud that Speaker Lindsay Hoyle had to suspend proceedings for 3 minutes. The polls tell the story. Conservatives jumped from 34% to 39% in 48 hours. Labour crashed from 31% to 24%, their lowest level since the election. For the first time since 2010, Conservatives command a double-digit lead. Sunak isn't just defeating Starmer on one policy. He's reclaiming the narrative about what kind of Britain people want, and he's doing it by standing shoulder to shoulder with the future king. The next 72 hours are critical. Parliament reconvenes Monday for the Housing Act vote. Cabinet members are threatening mass resignations if Starmer proceeds. Backbench MPs are collecting signatures for a no-confidence motion. Rural communities are planning the largest protests in British history. Organisers predict 100,000 people will march on Westminster. The question isn't whether Starmer's bill survives, it's whether Starmer himself survives. Britain is watching a constitutional crisis, a political meltdown, and a royal rebellion unfold simultaneously in real time. This will be studied for decades as the moment a Prime Minister forgot that in Britain, you don't fight the monarchy, you don't ignore rural communities, and you don't assume people will simply accept whatever Westminster decides. At the centre stands Starmer, increasingly isolated, increasingly desperate, and increasingly finished. The last time a British government faced simultaneous opposition from the palace, rural Britain, and its own backbenchers was 1936 during the abdication crisis. That government fell within months. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. So here's what you need to answer. Does Starmer withdraw the bill and admit defeat? Or does he push forward and destroy his own government? Did Prince William just save rural Britain, or did he trigger a constitutional crisis that changes the monarchy forever? And if Labour collapses, who leads Britain next? Rishi Sunak back in number 10 or someone nobody's expecting? Drop your answer in the comments. We're reading every single one, and this conversation is getting intense. And if this story opened your eyes to what's really happening in Westminster, share it. Your friends need to see this before Monday's vote. We're dropping part 2 tomorrow with the leaked WhatsApp messages between cabinet ministers. The coup against Starmer is already happening, and you won't believe who's leading it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. This story is far from over.